I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where shall my help come? In our gospel reading this morning, we are presented with a parable about a woman in a desperate situation. She is in need of justice, and the only person who has power over her fate is a judge who apparently answers to no one. The power differential between the two characters is as extreme as it could be. The woman is not just any woman. She's a widow, which means she's particularly vulnerable. While unmarried women in the 21st century do not have an overwhelming supply of power, the power of widows in first century Palestine was next to none. Without a man to provide for her and represent her publicly, as the culture required, her survival was in jeopardy. The judge, on the other hand, is said to neither fear God nor respect people. So while the widow has no power, the judge's power reigns unchecked. What would you do in this situation if you went to court or your local law enforcement office requesting justice and your request was openly denied? Would you go back? Would you go back to the person who gave you a definitive no and ask again? Despite the fact that the power distribution in this situation appears to fall 100% with the judge and 0% with the widow finds a way to prevail. She keeps going back. She keeps asking. And in this way, Jesus demonstrates that even in situations where it seems like we don't have any power, the power we have is persistence. We can keep fighting. We can keep loving. We just need the strength to persist. Many folks in our congregation participated in the No Kings protests and rallies yesterday. And I'm sure that you are aware that this is not going to be a one-and-done kind of situation. The work that is needed in our country, the work for love to prevail, that work is going to need persistence. It's going to need again and again showing up. It's going to need to keep going even when it seems like there's no chance that we have the power that we need. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. From where shall my help come? In our reading from Genesis, Jacob wrestles with the Lord. The reading doesn't give us the context of this wrestling, so let me tell you what happened right before. The context tells us that Jacob is about to face his brother Esau, and he has not seen Esau for a very long time. And the last time he saw Esau, he tricked Esau out of his inheritance and stole their father's blessing. Jacob has now come to be in a desperate situation, and his only hope is that his brother will take him in. His brother, who he tricked out of his inheritance the last time they were together. So Jacob is very anxious and fearful, and he has sent gifts of tribute ahead of him to his brother. He's made a plan to try to protect as many people of his family and his clan as he can, but he really has no idea how Esau is going to respond. And this is the night before they're going to meet. Will Esau forgive him and welcome him home? Or will he command his armies to destroy Jacob and his family? Jacob has no idea. So he wrestles. He wrestles with God. And the specifics of this story may or may not resonate with our daily lives, but situations of uncertainty and of powerlessness, of overwhelming fear, those probably resonate. It may be for you an experience of trauma, the threat of losing your job, or a major life decision, maybe the loss of a loved one, a close friend, or a pillar of the community like Dan Faco, who we memorialized yesterday. What can we do in these situations where we don't have the power? How do we find the strength to persist? I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where shall my help come? There's a connection between these two situations described in these readings, and On the one hand, the parable of the persistent widow is about seeking justice for someone who has been wronged or oppressed, and Jacob's wrestling match with God seems to be more about personal struggle and growth. But both of these stories involve uneven distributions of power and the experience of powerlessness. What do we do when we have run out of power? The gospel reading begins with Jesus saying that we must persist in prayer. We have a need to pray always and not to lose heart. So, what does prayer do for us in these situations? I would like to suggest that prayer offers us a surprising freedom. As the parable of the persistent widow demonstrates, the power we have in these situations is the power to persist in fighting for our lives, in loving one another, and in hoping for a better future. However, sometimes our persistence, our sense of fight, our capacity to love and hold on to hope, it gets beaten down by our situation, by what seems like the unlikeliness of having a good outcome. And prayer in these situations is our opportunity to recharge, to build back up those resources. Prayer itself is an expression of hope and love. It's built on the wish to make things better, the hope that our prayer will make some difference. Prayer is often what we turn to when we don't know what else to do, but we still care about the situation. We want to make a difference in some way, but we don't know how. It only takes a small seed of hope to form a prayer. And this prayer has the power to amplify that hope. Through prayer, we can be recharged, offering us the strength to fight, to persist in loving, and to further hope for the future. The effect that prayer has on the world is certainly not simple. I don't claim to understand it fully, but I do know that prayer affects me. When I lift up a prayer of intercession, usually it's for something that I care about deeply, and often it's something I feel I have little power over. I turn this hope over to God, confessing my powerlessness and relinquishing control over the outcome. And by letting go of that control, I'm freed from the situation's hold on me. I'm freed to connect with that centered sense of peace that can be found deep within any of us. This centered peace is like an unending stream of life, love, and joy. And when I connect with this centered, grounded peace, then I'm empowered to make a difference. My reserve of strength, love, and hope is refilled, and I'm able to persist in creative engagement with my situation. In this way, prayer transforms my powerlessness into power. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where shall my help come? I think it's interesting that the author of Luke prayers the parable of the persistent widow, which seems to be about justice and persisting in social justice work, with the idea of persistent prayer. Often prayer and action are viewed as totally different responses, set in contrast toward outward actions like comforting a friend or advocating for justice. Prayer can look like inaction, like a form of passivity. But we can reframe that. We can think of prayer not as inaction, but as inward action. What do inward actions have to do with outward actions? They're deeply interwoven and have everything to do with one another. Many of you know I play the violin, and for many years, I was a violin teacher. And I learned as a teacher the importance of what I call teaching from the ground up. Playing the violin is a complex activity, involves a lot of moving parts. All the body parts directly involved are connected to one another and connected to the rest of the body. So when a student comes into a lesson with poor tone because their arm position is not what it should be, it's really tempting to go right to the arm and say, here's the problem, lift your elbow, it'll give you more space and you'll be able to have better tone. But over time, I've learned that it's not actually that simple, that an inexperienced teacher might go right to the point where it seems like the problem is, the arm position. But proper arm position is built and balanced on the feet. If a student is standing with their weight all on one foot, their hip popped, their spine twisted, of course their arm's not going to be in the right position. You can move their arm around all day long, but their playing is never going to be what you'd like it to be without full transformation of the whole body. In the same way, if we really want to change the world, we must start from the ground up. We must start with our inner worlds, the foundation our outer world is balanced upon. Through prayer, we act inwardly. Starting at the ground, we recenter ourselves on God's overflowing love, and we realign our whole being, both our inward and our outward lives, on that foundation. In this way, God transforms both us and our situation from the inside out in the most thorough realignment possible. God's voice of love flows through us and is brought to bear on the situation. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where shall my help come? In a desperate situation, one where justice has been denied, or one where we find ourselves up all night wrestling with God, like Jacob, prayer is a gateway to renewed strength, hope, and persistence that transforms our world from the inward to the outward. Through prayer, we undercut the anxiety of our situation by connecting with a deeper peace. We refuse to let the situation steal our humanity. Instead, we claim that humanity in the identity of Christ that we share. God's stream of love and peace and joy is always available to us, amplifying our hope, fueling our persistence, and transforming that powerlessness into power. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where shall my help come? My help shall come from the Lord who made the heavens and the earth. Thanks be to God.